It's a very lovely afternoon. Welcome to this week's edition of Your Health Talk. Now, today I want us to talk about something pretty much easy, something that is quite not taken quite serious, but it does affect quite a number of people. Today I wanted us to talk about flu and, of course, cough, especially looking at the period in which we are today. The winter has come with quite its own consequences, and of course, we have got quite a number of people who are complaining about coughing or complaining about flu. That's the reason why I thought today on the Health Talk we can actually talk about that. We look at what are the causes of flu, some of the symptoms, and of course, what are the home remedies that you can actually employ to make sure that you actually get better in few hours and of course in a few days to come as well. And of course, today on this show we have also prepared well prepared videos that will definitely be taking us through some of the issues that we're going to be covering today. So I hope you're definitely going to pay attention so that you can get one or two things. And I'm sure that I'm talking to somebody who's got the problem with flu right now, and it might actually be important that you pay particular attention to the recordings and of course the video clips that we have on the show today. Most of these video clips have actually been done by different scholars and of course different lecturers, different professors across the world who are kind enough to post them on free downloads and to share with them to share with us for free, so that we can be able to enhance the knowledge and of course to enhance our understandings in relation to some of these critical issues. But before I get to the nitty-gritties of the things today, last week, starting on the 10th to about 17th of this month, we were commemorating Child Health Week. And of course, we saw quite a number of women take their babies to their nearest clinics and of course hospitals to go and receive various medication, various information in relation to how they need they needed to behave, how they need to live a healthy life. And of course, we were able to get at least a brief clip that shows the eagerness that most of the women were exercising or had during that particular period. And of course, this clip was taken from a Ngombe clinic, where a good number of women definitely did flock through to come and of course have their children examined, have their children given the necessary medication, have their children given the necessary immunization so that they can definitely stay healthy. Enjoy this one. All right, so now, in case you are a mother and of course you missed out on the first of the Child Health Week organized by the Republic of Zambia, to be specific, the Ministry of Health, you can as well look forward to another one coming up somewhere in November and of course December. And make sure that this time around you make an appointment, you make sure that this time around you go there, get your child who if you've got a child who is 5 years and below, you definitely need to take them there so that they can receive the necessary immunization and of course that they receive the necessary medication to prevent them, to protect them from colds, flus, and all that. It's important that every child who is 5 years and below, they are taken for the observation, for the assessment, and all that. It's quite important. Now let's get to the nitty-gritties of today. Like I mentioned earlier, today I wanted us to talk about something briefly, something that usually affects each one of us. And as I speak right now, obviously, you know somebody who has got flu and cough, and they are battling, and possibly they've even decided to go to a clinic, or possibly they are taking homemade remedies, they are taking, lemons and all that. It's important that we get to know exactly what we can do at home to minimize or to reduce the chances of us getting flu, or perhaps to reduce chances of us infecting other people as well. As you know for sure that flu is actually an airborne disease, and of course it's spread by a virus. So in most cases, it doesn't have a cure, but we can always fight it. Now, how best do you fight flu? One thing that you need to know about flu is that it's actually caused by a virus A, B, and C, and the most common one is actually A, B. But in other parts of this country, in other parts of the world, they are also infected by the type C. So if you are to ask any medical expert, I will tell you that flu is actually in three types. That is type A, type B, and of course type C. And type A and type B, they usually have similar symptoms, but for type C, it's pretty different as well. So type A and type B flu viruses are responsible for the seasonal outbreaks of flu. For example, in most cases here in Zambia, we usually experience an outbreak of flu between May, June, and of course July. Then later on, August as well, because of some dust, and of course because of the weather that we usually experience. So this is actually a seasonal disease in most cases here in Zambia. But when you look at other regions here in the world, they would tell you that, well, they usually experience flu during any season. And if you could hear that, then that simply means that they also are affected by the type C of the flu. So those are the basic three types of flu that you definitely need to know about. That is type A, type B, and of course type C as well. Now, obviously, somebody is asking themselves, how does flu affect other people? Well, we've already talked about flu being an airborne disease. It's an airborne disease that is usually spread through sneezing and of course through touching your nose, especially if at all you came in contact with a person who's got flu, and you came in close contact and they were sneezing whilst you were there, you are definitely at high risk of contracting flu. And on top of that, if at all you are touching surfaces that are infected, and after touching those surfaces that are infected, you also happen to touch your mouth, you also happen to touch your nose, and so on and so forth, you're also at risk of being infected with flu. That's the reason why the next video will explain more on how we can actually prevent ourselves from getting infected by flu, and what you and I can definitely do for each one of us, to stay away from flu, especially during this period when the weather it's quite changing. This morning it's hot, this afternoon it's cold, this evening it's freezy, and so on and so forth. So the next video will definitely educate us more on that.
What if I told you there were trillions of tiny bacteria all around you? It's true. Microorganisms called bacteria were some of the first life forms to appear on Earth. Though they consist of only a single cell, their total biomass is greater than that of all plants and animals combined. And they live virtually everywhere. On the ground, in the water, on your kitchen table, on your skin, even inside you. Don't reach for the panic button just yet. Although you have 10 times more bacterial cells inside you than your body has human cells, many of these bacteria are harmless or even beneficial, helping digestion and immunity. But there are a few bad apples that can cause harmful infections, from minor inconveniences to deadly epidemics. Fortunately, there are amazing medicines designed to fight bacterial infections. Synthesized from chemicals or occurring naturally in things like mold, these antibiotics kill or neutralize bacteria by interrupting cell wall synthesis or interfering with vital processes like protein synthesis, all while leaving human cells unharmed. The deployment of antibiotics over the course of the 20th century has rendered many previously dangerous diseases easily treatable. But today, more and more of our antibiotics are becoming less effective. Did something go wrong to make them stop working? The problem is not with the antibiotics, but the bacteria they were made to fight. And the reason lies in Darwin's theory of natural selection. Just like any other organisms, individual bacteria can undergo random mutations. Many of these mutations are harmful or useless, but every now and then, one comes along that gives its organism an edge in survival. And for a bacterium, a mutation making it resistant to a certain antibiotic gives quite the edge. As the non-resistant bacteria are killed off, which happens especially quickly in antibiotic-rich environments like hospitals, there is more room and resources for the resistant ones to thrive, passing along only the mutated genes that helped them do so. Reproduction isn't the only way to do this. Some can release their DNA upon death to be picked up by other bacteria, while others use a method called conjugation, connecting through pili to share their genes. Over time, the resistant genes proliferate, creating entire strains of resistant superbacteria. So how much time do we have before these superbugs take over? Well, in some bacteria, it's already happened. For instance, some strands of Staphylococcus aureus, which causes everything from skin infections to pneumonia and sepsis, have developed into MRSA, becoming resistant to beta-lactam antibiotics like penicillin, methicillin, and oxacillin. Thanks to a gene that replaces the protein beta-lactams normally target and bind to, MRSA can keep making its cell walls unimpeded. Other superbacteria, like Salmonella, even sometimes produce enzymes like beta-lactamase that break down antibiotic attackers before they can do any damage. And E. coli, a diverse group of bacteria that contains strains that cause diarrhea and kidney failure, can prevent the function of antibiotics like quinolones by actively booting any invaders that manage to enter the cell. But there is good news. Scientists are working to stay one step ahead of the bacteria. And although development of new antibiotics has slowed in recent years, the World Health Organization has made it a priority to develop novel treatments. Other scientists are investigating alternate solutions, such as phage therapy or using vaccines to prevent infections. Most importantly, curbing the excessive and unnecessary use of antibiotics, such as for minor infections that can resolve on their own, as well as changing medical practice to prevent hospital infections, can have a major impact by keeping more non-resistant bacteria alive as competition for resistant strains. In the war against superbacteria, de-escalation may sometimes work better than an evolutionary arms race.
All right, so that is pretty much what usually goes on. I think you've seen some people who've taken a similar medication that you once took, and that helped you definitely overcome the flu. But for them, it hasn't really been working, and you might be asking yourself as to why is it that the same medication that worked with me has failed to work with John, has failed to work with Mary. Well, the explanation is quite simple. From the video that you were just from watching, well, you could notice that after some time, the virus usually develop what we call resistance. And once they develop that resistance, no matter what medication you take, it actually bounces off, and it becomes very difficult for that medication to actually help you overcome the flu. That's the reason why it's important that every time you're not feeling too well, it's very, very advised, or they usually advise that you avoid taking medication which is not prescribed. You have to go to a clinic, you have to go to the hospital, and of course see a doctor, see a pharmacist, see somebody who can definitely run some tests on you, so that they know exactly what could be the problem, so that even when they are prescribing medication for you, they can prescribe medication that will help fight the germs, that will help fight the viruses, that will help fight the bacteria in your body. Because if you just take medication anyhow without really knowing exactly what could be the underlying problem, it becomes very difficult. And you also assist the viruses and the bacteria to build what we call resistance, so that by the time you be taking the correct medication, the medication will definitely not work on you, and you're going to keep on experiencing the same symptoms, and your immune system will keep on going down and down and down to such a level that anything that comes will definitely overcome it just like that. Now, have you ever asked yourself how the battle is between the viruses and your immune system? The next video will help us understand what really goes on in our bodies, especially when the viruses are trying by all means to penetrate through our immune system. How is our immune system designed, and how can our immune system be strengthened? Enjoy that.
You're in line at the grocery store when, someone sneezes on you. The cold virus is sucked inside your lungs and lands on a cell on your airway lining. Every living thing on Earth is made of cells, from the smallest one-celled bacteria to the giant blue whale, to you. Each cell in your body is surrounded by a cell membrane, a thick, flexible layer made of fats and proteins that surrounds and protects the inner components. It's semi-permeable, meaning that it lets some things pass in and out, but blocks others. The cell membrane is covered with tiny projections. They all have functions, like helping cells adhere to their neighbors or binding to nutrients the cell will need. Animal and plant cells have cell membranes, only plant cells have a cell wall, which is made of rigid cellulose that gives the plant structure. The virus that was sneezed into your lungs is sneaky. Pretending to be a friend, it attaches to a projection on the cell membrane, and the cell brings it through the cell membrane and inside. When the virus gets through, the cell recognizes its mistake. An enemy is inside. Special enzymes arrive at the scene and chop the virus to pieces. They then send one of the pieces back through the cell membrane, where the cell displays it to warn neighboring cells about the invader. A nearby cell sees the warning and immediately goes into action. It needs to make antibodies, proteins that will attack and kill the invading virus. This process starts in the nucleus. The nucleus contains our DNA, the blueprint that tells our cells how to make everything our bodies need to function. A certain section of our DNA contains instructions that tell our cells how to make antibodies. Enzymes in the nucleus find the right section of DNA, then create a copy of these instructions called messenger RNA. The messenger RNA leaves the nucleus to carry out its orders. The messenger RNA travels to a ribosome. There can be as many as 10 million ribosomes in a human cell, all studded along a ribbon-like structure called the endoplasmic reticulum. This ribosome reads the instructions from the nucleus. It takes amino acids and links them together one by one, creating an antibody protein that will go fight the virus. But before it can do that, the antibody needs to leave the cell. The antibody heads to the Golgi apparatus. Here, it's packed up for delivery outside the cell, enclosed in a bubble made of the same material as the cell membrane. The Golgi apparatus also gives the antibody directions, telling it how to get to the edge of the cell. When it gets there, the bubble surrounding the antibody fuses to the cell membrane. The cell ejects the antibody, and it heads out to track down the virus. The leftover bubble will be broken down by the cell's lysosomes, and its pieces recycled over and over again. Where did the cell get the energy to do all this? That's the role of the mitochondria. To make energy, the mitochondria takes oxygen, this is the only reason we breathe it, and adds electrons from the food we eat to make water molecules. That process also creates a high-energy molecule called ATP, which the cell uses to power all of its parts. Plant cells make energy a different way. They have chloroplasts that combine carbon dioxide and water with light energy from the sun to create oxygen and sugar, a form of chemical energy. All the parts of a cell have to work together to keep things running smoothly. And all the cells of your body have to work together to keep you running smoothly. That's a whole lot of cells. Scientists think there are about 37 trillion of them.
All right, so that is pretty much what happens in a human body. In your body, that's exactly what usually happens. Now, briefly, possibly you might have missed one or two points from that video. Now, let me just highlight a few things. Your body is more like a castle, and of course, a castle has got a prince and obviously a queen, a princess, and all that. But let's forget about that. But let us concentrate on the soldiers who have got the mandate to defend the castle. So that is how your body is. It's got what we call the cells. These cells have got the responsibility to make sure that any enemy, any unfriendly thing should not penetrate through your body. So they are always on guard. But there are always times when you let your guard down. What happens? They will definitely manipulate that and enter into the body. But when they enter into the body, it's not automatic that they will definitely be able to destroy the castle. They'll be able to destroy the kingdom, because the soldiers from within will be able to attack and of course destroy it. And once that is destroyed, they'll be able to communicate to the other parts of the body to say the intruder that came in definitely has been destroyed. But that immune system, it's not a guarantee that always it will forever be strong, because it depends on how much you feed it. It depends on how much you empower it. Does it have enough immune? Does it have enough rifles to make sure that it fights all the viruses, bacteria, and germs that may actually put you at risk of obviously being infected by virus diseases? That's the reason why we always emphasize at this platform that you need to eat healthy, you need to take a lot of water. On top of that, you also need to make sure that you eat a balanced diet. You eat a lot of vegetables, enough proteins, in fats, and of course you also eat carbohydrates and all that. On top of that, you also need to do a lot of exercises, because exercises will definitely enhance the capability of your body to fight the outside invaders. Remember that we are everywhere where we are surrounded by all these. We are surrounded by germs, we are surrounded by bacteria, we are surrounded by viruses. And when we are talking about a child, if it's a child, every child is even at more risk than an adult, because a child has got no knowledge about where they are playing, what is there, and so on and so forth. But for an adult like you always know exactly where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do. But for a child, they definitely don't know about that. That's the reason why, for all mothers, fathers, and of course sisters, brothers, we always need to be very cautious with our environment, with our surrounding. We need to make sure that it's hygienic so that we do not put the life of our kids at risk of contracting any disease that may be as a result of germs, bacteria, and of course flu and viruses as well. Now, every time that you have a cough, every time that you have a flu, first things first, you obviously wouldn't want to go straight to the clinic, straight to the hospital. Maybe you might be attacked at night. What can you do at home? Any home remedy that you can think about that can help you cope up, that can help improve your immune system, that can help you definitely reduce the pain that come as a result of that flu? Wow, those are some of the issues that the next video is going to address, and I urge you to pay attention as the explanation is being done, because most of these things are things that we usually do at home. Every time you've got a cough, you've got a flu, you might get ginger, you might get lemon, you might get, garlic, you might get honey. These are very effective in helping us fight germs, bacteria, and of course viruses as well. But how best can you prepare them? Check this out.
Ginger honey tea is a great way to boost your immune system. The ginger and the honey combination is amazing. Honey acts as a natural antibiotic, and the ginger helps with pain and inflammation, which is great. The lemon is also loaded with vitamin C, which can help boost your immune system. So this is a great cocktail to kill a cold and flu. So I used about 1 cup of ginger root, but you can use less if you can't handle the taste as much. And I peeled the skin off, and then I cut it into little cubes like this. Once you've cut it into cubes, you'll want to set it aside and grab some lemons. I used about 2 lemons in this recipe, but you can use more if you'd like. Then you want to take about a half a cup to a cup of honey, depending on your desired taste, and add it to about 4 or 5 cups of water. And just put it all in the pot together. You can add the honey afterwards if you'd like, but I like to add it in while it's boiling. Then bring it to a boil and let it boil for about 20-25 minutes, and then you're ready to pour it into your cup. It'll make a whole pot, so that's enough for everybody in the family, or you'll have lots left over throughout the day. Natural cough syrup. This is just one of my recipes, but this is the one that I am going to make today. So this one is super simple. It only has a few ingredients. The first ingredient is an organic lemon, or lemons, you'll need multiple, raw organic honey, cold pressed organic coconut oil, and optionally cayenne pepper. So 1.5 cups of honey, raw organic honey, half a cup of coconut oil, and then you'll want to strain out any seeds. So however you want to do this, I used this to strain out any seeds. And just squeeze them in. I used about 3 to 4 lemons. And you'll notice it won't combine very well. So you'll need to place it on the stove on low-medium heat. And you're not trying to boil it, you're just trying to combine the ingredients. And you'll notice the consistency will change. And it will be combined, that's all you're trying to do. And then pour it into your jar and it's ready for use. You can add your cayenne pepper at this point, by the way, but I'm leaving it out for the kids. And then you're done. Peppermint tea. Now this is kind of a natural remedy because it's natural, but peppermint tea is amazing to help with reducing fever, nausea, coughs. It has many other benefits, but it's just a really simple, easy way to help relieve some of those cold and flu symptoms. So I thought I'd add it in for you guys. Oregano Immune Booster. Oil of oregano is known to be antibacterial, antiseptic, antiviral, immune stimulating. It's high in omega-3s, iron, and antioxidants, which makes it a great super setup to kill those cold and flu symptoms. It'll give you instructions on the back of your bottle, but this one says 3 to 5 drops, 3 to 4 times daily. Garlic honey on a spoon. This is more of a quick tip than anything, but it's just crushing up half of a clove of garlic, putting it on a tablespoon, adding some raw organic honey, and then taking it just like that. It will help boost your immune system. Do it once or twice a day.
All right, so it's important that we get used to the idea of knowing exactly how to prepare a home remedy, a herb that can definitely help us fight flu, especially during this period. Not only flu, but also a cough as well. If you have got access to ginger, of which I encourage you to be buying a lot of ginger, garlic, and of course make sure that your kitchen has got honey as well. On top of that, make sure that you also have lemon as well, because if you combine these, definitely they give you a very, very strong syrup. They give you a very strong tonic that can definitely help you, ease the pain that you might be experiencing as a result of flu. So something that I talked about in today's episode of Your Health Talk is that one thing you need to know is that flu is caused by an influenza virus, either A, B, or C. Here in Zambia, the most common ones are A and B, which are quite seasonal. How do you get flu? By being around people who've got flu, by touching surfaces that are infected, and also by obviously being exposed to a lot of dust, to a lot of infection and all that. All these definitely could put you at risk of developing that flu. Now, what are some of the basic symptoms? Well, obviously sneezing, coughing, and of course having a running nose. All those are some of the basic symptoms of flu. And how do you fight flu? One, you need to make sure that you stay away from people who have got flu. Make sure that your room is well ventilated. Avoid touching surfaces that are infected. And on top of that, get a regular drink of that tonic that you saw in the previous video. A combination of lemon, honey, ginger, and of course garlic. It will definitely help your immune system remain stronger. Okay, so that's it for today, and I'm sure that you found this episode quite interesting, especially during this season. We'll be back next week same time on Friday at exactly 16 for another edition of Your Health Talk.